Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, February 6th, 2023. On the show today, news, listener questions, and surveys, including Disneyland's first ever guest survey. Then in our main segment, Jim tells us about the time Disneyland switched to a 7-day-a-week operating schedule. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says that when you're in a bad mood, ask yourself, is this a real problem, or do I just need to eat something with melted cheese? It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Len. The day that we, as Americans, are supposed to celebrate all things involving melted cheese, that's Wednesday, April 12th, National Grilled Cheese Day.
Oh, all right. Well, I know what's for lunch on that day.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, on the day this show goes live, Monday, February 6th, it's both National Chopstick Day and International Frozen Yogurt Day. So, you want to do something especially challenging today? Why not? There you go. Why not combine these two holidays and try to eat your frozen yogurt with a chopstick?
It might be doable depending on how frozen it gets, but good luck, folks. Let us know how it goes.
There you go. I want proof, though, to send photos, folks. I'd love to see that. So.
You got like a windmill effect going with the chopsticks, I guess. All right.
Also.
Jim, before we get started, let me do a quick shout out to our friends Gary Zarelli, Jim Corcus, and BioReconstruct, who are all on the mend. Jim and I hope you all feel better soon. And in totally unrelated news, folks, porcupines make terrible house pets. Jim, let's do shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thanks to new subscribers Rhodey Mary, Baron Von Reed, and Jay Freelack, and longtime subscribers Daniel Bell, Kevin Hollywood, Mindy Whitco, and Rich Grafton. Jim, these are the Disney cast members who manage the Hollywood Tower Hotel at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which, as you recall, is an actual functioning hotel. They say that too much attention gets focused on the hotel's bulky elevators, which, quote, can be temperamental sometimes, quote, and they hope Disney's next advertising focuses on the Tower Hotel's fret bed linens and award-winning Sunday brunch omelet bar. True story.
Always startled what I learned.
It's all about the elevators, never about the omelet bar, Jim. And from a hotel manager's perspective, it's got to hurt. It's got to hurt.
That's got to hurt. Yeah.
All right, Jim, let's do the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at StorybookDestinations.com. All right, Jim, Epcot has announced performers for the Garden Rocks concert series during the Flower and Garden Festival. The new acts include Blue Oyster Cult, and Jim, my comment there is There Goes Tokyo Dining. 3 people will get that. That's fine.
Okay.
Sabado,
All right.
Sabado Gigante's own Luis Figueroa, the Colombian pop group Piso 21, and Christian rock bands Switchfoot and Casting Crowns. Also, Jim, AJ Croce playing his own songs and those of his dad, which, if I remember my 1970s music, is a man named Leroy Brown. Keep your feet on the ground, AJ, and keep reaching for the stars. Also, longtime favorites Rick Springfield, May 28th and 29th, Kool and the Gang, April 30th and May 1st, and Flock of Seagulls, April 21st and 22nd. Jim, I think the wise move there is to get Flock of Seagulls in before the humidity sets in for the summer because of the hairspray involved.
Oh, God, yes. Or the ozone layer will suffer, okay?
It's funny, I was going through this the concert list with Laurel, like trying to see how many people she knew by name only, because there's some people in there, it's like Bob Smith, former lead singer of whatever, and Laurel, we got to Rick Springfield, and Laurel's like, I would go see Rick Springfield, and she said it in a way that was like, I would gladly give a kidney to go see Rick Springfield at Epcot May 20th and 29th. So I may be down for that one. You never know.
Okay. Well, I have to warn you, Nancy has been to see Rick Springfield a number of times over the past 4 and 5 years, and when I mentioned this date, I know there's a plane ticket being purchased in Miami.
Her eyes glaze over. She gets a faraway look.
There you go. So.
Starts talking about General Hospital. I get it. I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know the signs.
Okay.
All right, Jim, speaking of concerts, I'm going to the opening night of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour next month in Glendale, Arizona, and I know most of Taylor's hits, but if our listeners have suggestions for what should be on my Swiftie playlist to prep for the show, please email me, len@touringplans.com.
Cool.
All right, Jim, before we do the next piece of news, I want to ensure that our listeners are in the right headspace to receive it. So if you're having a tough day, Aaron's going to play 10 seconds of some music here for you to fast forward about 2 minutes. Go, Aaron. Jim, this week Disney announced the closing of the beloved Trails End restaurant over at the Fort Wilderness Campgrounds. And my first reaction, Jim, was, honest to God, every day we stray further from God's light.
Oh.
The Trails End buffets were legendary, Jim. It was the first place I ever saw all-you-can-eat donuts for breakfast. And that's when I realized as an adult, Jim, that no one can stop me from eating all-you-can-eat donuts for breakfast. No, honestly, it was the time where I realized, like, I'm an adult, and no one will stop me from eating all-you-can-eat donuts for breakfast. It was literally in the Trails End restaurant that I realized that. Yeah. Also, the dinner buffet included barbecued ribs, peel and eat shrimp, really good fried chicken, and fruit cobbler every night.
Yep.
Jim, more than one listener that I've talked to, and I'm not making this up, has told me that they stopped dating people who thought that Trails End was just okay.
Ooh.
Sad moment.
This is changing to...
It's going to a quick service, which I get.
Yeah.
You know, we're all on the go, and we want to make the most of our parks time and stuff like that. But, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was tough.
No, it is. It is.
All right, Jim, let's do surveys because we haven't done those in a couple of weeks. Andrew sent in a Disney survey. By the way, happy Monday to everyone listening at Consumer Insights. And Jim, well, we've seen this question before. I was talking with some folks at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics about, survey questions in general. And I mentioned this Disney question. And the question's this. What was your primary means of transportation to the state of Florida from your home? And the thing I asked the BLS was, why does Disney want to know this? Because the question isn't, how did you get to Walt Disney World? The question is, how did you get to Florida?
Ooh, okay.
And it turns out, again, this is all theory, right? But it turns out that you can derive other information about the visitors, and specifically their household income, based on mode of transportation. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics breaks out its travel spending by household income quintile. So bottom fifth, second fifth, middle fifth, fourth 20%, and then the top 20%, right? And then they each spend different amounts of money on those modes of transportation. So you can figure out based on, you can have a decent guess based on not only the answer to this question, but if you combine it with a few other questions, you can figure out basically household income without having to ask or get household income from that question.
I love how they extrapolate information.
Yeah, it's really interesting. By the way, the reason I was talking to the BLS was to get updated data on their consumer expenditures and travel data sets. So if anyone's interested, I can talk about that in an upcoming show. It's super interesting. The top 20% of Americans now by household income is just over $215,000 a year, and their travel spending is vastly different than the other 80%. So we can talk about that.
As one might expect. So
as you'd expect, exactly. All right. Our friend Jason Schultz, who's archivist Jason on Twitter, posted a new Disneyland poll. Well, it's new to us, but it's actually the first guest satisfaction poll ever done at Disneyland. And Jason has agreed to share the photos with us. So we're going to go through them here. All right, Jim, this is titled Disneyland Inc., Customer Relations Division, April 14th, 1960.
yeah.
And it's guest opinion poll number 1 for the period April 2nd to April 10th, 1960. So there's a couple of interesting things on this poll. So there's a header, like a title sheet that says, the attached is the first of a new series of guest opinion polls. We hope to furnish these to Walt on a regular basis in the future. Some interesting facts and figures. Repeat visitors have reached an all-time high with 47.5% of those interviewed having visited one or more times. So, Jim, this is less than 5 years after opening.
Yeah.
And we're already at almost 50% repeat visitors.
And right off the bat, that tells you a lot about what was happening in the immediate area around Disneyland. I mean, that thing that eventually came true, that folks from 100 miles away began to regularly visit the happiest place on earth because they really, really enjoyed it and wanted to show it off to friends and family.
There's a couple of other interesting facts here. I'll bring up one of them as we go through it. But the other one is this. 91.3% of those interviewed felt they spent the same or less than they expected on visiting Disneyland. Also, the Reader's Digest apparently did a story on Disneyland in April of 1960, and 14 guests mentioned that specifically as the reason why they visited, which is kind of interesting because you wouldn't think that Reader's Digest would be the thing that drove visitors to Disneyland, but apparently it was a big thing back in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. Well, every home had 2 publications sitting on the coffee table. One was Reader's Digest and one was TV Guide.
Oh, yeah. And my grandparents subscribed to Reader's Digest well into the 80s because I remember reading it for the jokes. Yeah.
The condensed books alone.
Yeah, exactly. And we had those as well. Yeah. All right. Question number 1. Have you visited Disneyland before? So we said 47.5% of them had already said yes. If yes, Jim, how many times? So 112 respondents said one time. That's 55.7%. But the interesting thing for me, Jim, is that something like almost 30% of guests had been to Disneyland 3 or more times, including 2 guests who said 100 times.
All right, let's stop talking about my grandfather now, all right?
I was going to say, we would call this a peer group, Jim.
There we go. He was a fine man, a little obsessed, okay.
Question number 2. How did you find the courtesy of the employees? So the interesting thing here is that they were not referred to as cast members at this point. It was employees. 421 out of 423 people said favorable. So courtesy was favorable. The interesting thing on this, Jim, this is typewritten. The percentage listed for 421 out of 423 is 199.5%, proving, Jim, that some mistakes are inevitable no matter how you do it. So 0.5% people said it was unfavorable. Number 3, this is a super interesting question. 423 people asked this question. The question is, would you recommend Disneyland to others? Jim, guess how many people out of 423 said no?
Single numbers?
Yeah, you could say it's a single number. It's 0. Literally all 423 people said they would recommend Disneyland to others. In the history of would you recommend this to a friend, Jim, I don't know that a number has ever been that good.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? 4 out of 5 dentists. I mean, it's just sort of
like,
wow. Okay.
This is not only 5 out of 5 dentists. This is 423 out of 423 dentists.
There you go.
Yeah, amazing number. There's literally no question you could ask 423 people today and get 100% of them to say the same answer. I don't care if the question is the surface of the sun hot? Somebody would say no. Guaranteed, 100%.
Tepid at best.
Yeah. No, somebody would say relative to what, right?
All
right. Question number 4. In regard to the cost of your visit, would you say you spent more than expected? And that was only 8.7% of guests. And then the rest, so 91.3%, said the same or less than expected. And to break that out, 62.9%, call it 63, said same as expected, so roughly 2 out of 3. And then 28% said less than expected.
Interesting.
Question number 5. Do you feel you received your money's worth? 417 people said yes, that's 98.6%. 6 people said no, and Jim, so few people said no, I love the follow-up here, that they asked them why. All right, so I had tickets left over. Some rides were too expensive, many rides were closed, and the lines were too long.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Lines too long, rides too expensive. Had tickets left over is kind of interesting because it's like you couldn't find, in 1960, you couldn't find enough things to do with your tickets in Disneyland?
It's one of those things where, it's the A, B, C, D tickets. I think.
Yeah.
Did we have e-tickets at that point? I want to say the Matterhorn had just opened in 59, so.
Maybe?
Yeah, I guess we did. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where I got an A left. Well, did you ride the omnibus?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's true. It could have been an A, right?
Okay.
Fair. I'm thinking, Jim, though, if the technology from Quantum Leap, the reboot, comes back to life, and I find myself in Disneyland in 1960, the police would have to drag me out.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going of my own volition. I am not leaving the park, right? Things will happen. I'll need to find a lawyer. I'm just saying.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Question number 6. Did you eat at Disneyland today? 80%, 337 said yes, 20% said no. If yes, how was the food?
Hmm.
90% said good, 9% said fair, and 1% said poor. And they noted here that 8
Mm-hmm.
of the 337 guests ate at more than one place. There's someone, Jim, these days saying we've got to boost that number.
Now, this is during the time when a lot of the concessions at Disneyland are not actually operated by Walt. They're operated by
Right.
ABC Paramount. They were
Right.
part of that deal to the American Broadcasting Company, provided both seed money and guaranteed some loans for the park, but they got this concession. And it wasn't until 64, 65 where Walt finally got the Plaza Inn. He built a restaurant that the way he wanted it built, because frankly, what was driving Walt crazy, especially on Sundays, was to watch that steady stream of people who would head out of Disneyland at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because on their way home back to LA, they were going to stop at Knott's and have a chicken dinner.
Knott's for some fried chicken.
Yeah,
exactly.
so.
It's funny, when you and I were planning a trip in March to Disneyland, and honest to God, one of the things I looked at, because we're driving to Disneyland, is like, could we stop off at Knott's and get some fried chicken?
We're going to shoot that airport in somehow, Len. So.
All right. Next question. Have you seen or heard any Disneyland advertising? So 92% said yes. And the follow-up question is, if yes, where? So television, Jim, 38%. That's kind of understandable with the World of Color and everything like that. The next highest category, you want to take a guess?
Print?
Word of mouth from friends, 16%.
Okay.
And
that.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a good sign right there. Then billboards right after that, newspapers, radio, I don't remember, and then magazines, Reader's Digest, things after that. Yeah. Amazingly, 0.2%, so one person, said they heard about Disneyland at the YMCA.
Wow. You're there tying your sneakers and, hey, we had a good time there last weekend. So, okay.
Also, 2 people said they didn't hear about Disneyland from friends. They heard about Disneyland from relatives. So because Jim, you got to keep your friends and your family separate.
Rules to live by, Len.
All right, question number 8. What type of work does the head of the family do? So they broke it down here into 7 categories. The first one is skilled, which was just under 27%. Then white collar jobs, 25%. Professional, 20%. Armed services, 10%. Unskilled, 9%. Retired, 8%. And then student was about 0.5%. I would love to see this distribution now.
I love survey work from the 60s. We looked at the world differently.
Well, because the armed services were probably a much larger percentage of the U.S. employed population.
Especially in Southern California. In fact, Robert Darcy's book about the early days of Disneyland, he talks about how the number of folks who actually worked at the park who were Marines from just down the road, who this was their job on the weekends. They'd come and work at the park, let alone bring their friends there to visit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, 10%. That makes sense.
Yep.
All right, Jim, next question. Question number 9. Are you a resident of California? So the overall answers were 55% yes, 45% no. The interesting thing is it jumps up to 62% yes on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. Now, you'd think that I would think the opposite of that would be true, because on weekends people can travel. But it looks like locals are coming in on weekends.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, that they learned very, very quickly about who was coming to Disneyland. And in fact, if you think about the programs they started up, like date night at Disneyland, or for that matter, grad night, just the notion of, hey, the locals love to come back to the park. Let's give them reasons.
And on weekday guests, so here, Jim, Disneyland was only open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so not Monday and Tuesday. And this ties into our talk for later on today. 56% were from outside the state of California, and 44% were from inside the state of California. So the numbers actually flipped on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Interesting.
Well, again, those are the people who have made a point of traveling to Disneyland as part of their trip to Southern California.
And you mentioned Southern California, and that leads us into the next question. What percentage of the guests were from north of Bakersfield, California, and which percent were south? And Jim, why would they pick Bakersfield?
Do you remember there was a television show in the 80s, The Greatest American Hero with Robert Culp?
Believe it or not,
There we go.
I'm walking. Yeah.
All
I
right.
remember.
And do you remember how Robert Culp's special agent character, whenever they had to meet with the aliens, said, oh, God, we got to go all the way to Bakersfield.
Was it the population center?
More to the point,
Was
that
it the center of the
really remote land? It just sort
Was
of
it?
like,
Bakersfield.
God, you got to schlep all the way to Bakersfield. So it was out there. So it's an interesting for them to select it as a demarcation point. But again, the very fact that, again, as part of Greatest American Hero, they used to talk about how remote Bakersfield was.
Yeah. So Bakersfield is sort of like the 30th parallel for
There we go.
Disneyland.
There we go.
All right, so below Bakersfield, you've got L.A., San Diego,
Yep.
Anaheim, and stuff like that.
Yep.
North of Bakersfield, you've got San Jose, San Francisco, Sacramento.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the dividing line back then of the population. Anyway,
Could be.
interesting thing there.
Mhm.
24% came from north of Bakersfield, and 76% came from south of Bakersfield.
Yep.
So Bakersfield's 138 miles north of Anaheim. So I kind of get that, but it means that they're drawing from Southern California.
Mostly. But again, this is one of the reasons you do this survey work, dude.
Right. Yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
There we go.
Out-of-state guests, where did they come from? No surprise, I guess. New York, number one on that list, 8.7% of guests, or 14. Then Illinois, Michigan, Washington State, and Wisconsin. The states that bring up the bottom of the list, the bottom five: Louisiana, New Mexico, Tennessee, Utah, and Wyoming. My guess is Utah is a much larger component of Disneyland than now. There were 11 foreign countries represented in the survey. Canada, number one at 16. Then Mexico, Australia, Germany, Hong Kong, Switzerland, Portugal, France, Brazil, Sweden, and South Africa. The approximate age of the adults, 37. The average age of the women, 38.3. Their average length of stay, this is question number 11, is just under 5 hours. And then the last question, Jim, miscellaneous comments of guests. I'm going to go through all of them because they're beautiful. First one was, more direction signs needed on the highway. Yeah, Walt, get on that.
Yeah, there you go.
We're proud to entertain guests at Disneyland. I guess this was a corporate sponsor. The food portions at the Red Wagon were too large.
Those folks at Swift, come on, one more sausage, cram it down.
Exactly. How do you keep Disneyland so clean? You should have ramps for wheelchairs. You could say that now about Disneyland Paris. The baby station is wonderful. There were no strawberries in the ice cream. Okay, so Jim, here's my follow-up question for this person.
Yep.
Is to slide my glasses down my nose a little bit and say, really?
Well,
you want me to write this down for all posterity?
it's the classic, the person who complains if they're hung with a new rope. All right, you gotta find something to complain about.
All right. Okay. This is what happens when you ask the general public questions,
there
right?
We go.
All right. Next one was, my visit has been the greatest experience ever.
Okay, so this is now burying the needle.
It was the best of times.
Okay.
It was the worst of times.
Okay.
Things balance out, Jim.
Wait a minute. The birth of your child, the day you get married. Oh, no. Disneyland. It's like, okay.
Disneyland. That's it.
Okay.
All right. The drinking water is cold, but hard to get. It needs more pressure. Fair.
Okay.
That's actually not a bad comment in the overall scheme of things. All right. The food was extra good. And then, the next one. I didn't like the food.
Okay.
The employees are just great. And of course, the opposite. One employee on the train was not too courteous. And the ice cream boy was not happy like other employees.
Well, there you go. I mean, think about that poor kid sitting there. Oh, God, another person's going to ask about the no strawberry. I can't live with myself.
I read the thing about the ice cream boy and I was like, the chimney sweeps don't seem too happy today. Between the coughing, they look just miserable.
There you go. Please, sir, I want some more.
The ice cream boy was not happy like other employees.
All right.
I think I might get a T-shirt made with this exact quote and wear it to Disneyland.
There we go. So, by the way, could be a coincidence. But do you know what Tony Baxter's very first job was when he was hired at Disneyland before he became it?
Oh, please tell me it was Ice Cream Boy.
There we go. All right.
Oh. The next time I see Tony, I have a story for him.
There we go.
All right. All right, Jim, we got time to do some listener questions. Let's do them. Here's one from Carrie, who says, hello, and Jim. Our family sadly cannot join you on the Star Cruiser. That's in March. But our trip will be in the same time frame as yours, which leads me to this question. This is our first trip during spring break, and we thought with the increased attendance at the parks, it might be a good idea to explore the Animal Kingdom Lodge where we're staying. I looked up activities online, and it seems a few years ago there were tons of things to enjoy there. But based on what I'm seeing, many of those are not currently available. Could you give me an idea on whether some of the Savannah experiences and tours will be coming back, and which activities you might know about as alternatives? Love the show, and thanks. All right, so this is interesting because I was just at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, Carrie. They do have the activities, but it's probably not posted online because the events will vary with things like occupancy and weather and stuff like that. But there are tons of things to do at the resort. There are activities basically every hour, every 90 minutes throughout the day. I would say stop by the front desk and ask for the recreation calendar when you get there. So there's all kinds of stuff from Savannah experiences to arts and crafts. They start at 9 o'clock and they go late into the night. The other thing you might want to look at is there's also some outdoor activities over by the pool. So starting around like 1 o'clock and going until middle of the evening, like 7:30. Basically every hour there are activities at the pool as well. So if it's nice and you want to get some sun and some pool time in, there's definitely activities there as well. But yeah, inside the lodge, if it's raining or you don't feel like going out in the sun or whatever, every hour there'll be stuff to do. Just to ask for the recreation calendar when you get there.
And while we're touching on Animal Kingdom Lodge, which we think of Animal Kingdom, a recent show I mentioned that the magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom had come back season 2 on Disney Plus, and talked about how it was cool that friend of the show Josh Gad was continue on his gig as narrator on the show, and had one of our listeners write in and correct me to the effect of Josh didn't come back for season 2. There's a young lady called Tasha Johnson who's now narrating the show. Though Josh reached out in the past week and was all excited about Chrissy's story with the blueprints for Morocco. So he's
you mentioned that.
He was pumping me for information about this. So I sent it out back to him and his lovely daughters Ava and Isabella, who I guess listened to the show with Dad. So hi, girls. But Chrissy, keep wandering around Morocco. Josh Gad needs info.
So it was interesting you mentioned that because Chrissy saw a film crew in Morocco last week.
Okay.
So we've seen now 2 groups of Imagineers with plans, laser pointers, and measuring devices, and now a film crew in Morocco. Okay. Something's going on, Jim. Something's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Here's an email from Holly, who says, about the survey question from Disney, asking guests to estimate the total they spent on the trip. I think you and Jim forgot that, believe it or not, there are still people in the world who pay for things with cash. And don't forget gift cards. Crazy talk, Holly, crazy talk. When I go to Disney, I pay for almost all of my food and merch with cash or gift cards that are not linked to MD, meaning Disney would have no way of tracking that spending. I just had to send you a note because I was yelling at the podcast as you guys puzzled over why Disney doesn't already know exactly how much everyone spends. Holly, I think everyone yells at the podcast when they're talking, but thank you for explaining why you yelled at it. That's the reason why Holly yells at the podcast, Jim.
By the way, also worth noting, in addition to gift cards and money, or cash, there is, of course, barter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been interesting watching the people around property with Splash Mountain toys lately. It's like, how much are these? How much? How many French fries?
We're going to talk about Splash Mountain now for a second. All right, okay. You saw the thing on eBay about people selling
the water,
plastic bags full of Splash Mountain water.
Yep.
And some of them were going for up to $100. And so I decided to, just because I had nothing better to do one Sunday night, Jim, I emailed one of the sellers and I asked for a certificate of authenticity for the Splash Mountain water and never heard back. And I'm a little disappointed on that. Like, do you have video of yourself actually scooping this water into the bag so that I know that it's actual Splash Mountain water?
There we go.
Anyway.
This is, in a weird sort of way, kind of a tradition. I mean, I remember talking with Bruce Gordon, who, as a child, built a plaster Paris model of Disneyland's Jungle Cruise at home. And insisted that once he completed it, the only way it would be truly authentic is if he had Jungle Cruise water. So he snuck a carton from his school. You know how you used to get that teeny tiny like pint thing of
Yeah,
milk?
the little pint,
He
pint of milk.
snuck it into Disneyland, rode the Jungle Cruise, and when the skipper was preoccupied, dipped it in, and then carefully carried it home for his plaster Paris model, avoiding, of course, the cost of getting somebody to there was no eBay back then, but I bet you would have paid a pretty penny.
So my question for Bruce, the next time we see him, is going to be this. Was that the first or the last thing he did during the day, during his visit to Disneyland? Because if it was the first thing, he's carrying it around all day. And me, Jim, I would forget, and I would get thirsty, and I'd be like, oh, let me have a swig of milk. And then, end up in the hospital 4 hours later with some case of, weird dysentery that no one's ever seen.
Given the color they used to dye the river, or still do.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I end up with a disease named after me. All right.
There you go.
Last email is from Andrew, who says, I was listening to Christina's story about tipping at Alani, and it is absolutely true that cast members have to refuse tips 3 times. I worked at the World of Disney at Disney Springs, and the coordinator there would have me be a door greeter. I love doing this position because a DJ plays most nights on the stage in front of the store, and I was notorious for wearing Mickey ears and shaking what my mama gave me in front of my ECV scooter. During Christmas, as I was busting a move, a man came up and put $60 into my hands. He ran off before I could refuse it. I told my manager, who was actually dumbfounded, that I actually willingly reported the cash. The managers huddled together and let me use that $60 to buy toys for our Toys for Tots drive from the store. Super neat experience. Oh, that's great, Andrew. Also, I need video of you dancing now. So,
Yeah.
All right, Jim, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, you and I are going to talk about the first time Disneyland went to a 7-day-a-week operating schedule.
So it got super, super cold this past weekend up here in New England, like 30 below cold, which is why a water pipe up in my mom's attic first froze and then burst. Okay, so after we get that pipe repaired, I'm up in my mom's attic and I come across this now sopping cardboard box full of photos, which show this young kid in uniform and he appears to be in some sort of a marching band. So after I dry these things off, I haul those photos downstairs and I ask my mom, well, who's this? And my mom then says, oh, that's your great-grandfather back when he was in that marching band and Chowder Society. And I was like, marching band and Chowder Society? They played music while they ate soup? My great-grandfather's dry cleaning bills must have been astronomical. I mean, I had never heard about this aspect of my great-grandfather's life before, which got me thinking, what other stories don't I know about the history of the Hill family? Which is why I'm glad I got my mom, well, a wet dry vac, but also hooked her up with Storyworth. Storyworth is this online service that helps you and your loved ones connect through sharing stories and memories and then preserves them for years yet to come. Every week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question of your choice from a vast pool of possible options. Each unique prompt asks questions you've never thought of, like, what was one of your fondest childhood memories, or what's the best advice you've ever received? I really enjoyed reading through my mom's responses to these questions. There's stories and memories here that I've never heard before. Like how, when my mom was a teenager and out visiting family in Indiana one summer, she reportedly saw this large, cigar-shaped object hovering out over a cornfield. Sadly, Mom didn't get a picture of whatever that was, but if she had, Storyworth would have then taken that photo and folded it in with all of the other stories and memories that she shared, which would then be placed in a beautiful keepsake book that the whole family could then enjoy and share for generations yet to come, which I bet my mom will put out on display in her living room once water stops dripping down from the attic, I mean. So get to know your loved ones better and preserve those special moments forever with Storyworth. Right now, for a limited time, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/DisneyDish. That's STORYWORTH.com/DisneyDish to save $10 on your first purchase. Storyworth.com/DisneyDish. We thank them for sponsoring today's show. February starts with the letter F. And do you know what other word starts with the letter F? No, not that word. Get your mind out of the gutter, pal. Me personally, I can think of at least 2 more words that begin with the letter F that are also not that word. and they are frugal and funds. And if one of your goals for 2023 is to keep a far closer watch on what you're spending, be more frugal with your funds, well then let me ask you a question. Do you actually know how much all of your subscriptions cost per month? I mean, most Americans think that they're only spending around $80 on subscription each month, when the actual total is a lot closer to $200. And if you don't know how much exactly you're spending every month on subscriptions, well, then you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Which is a really great tool to have at your disposal, given that over 80% of people have subscriptions that they've forgotten about. Like that streaming service you bought to watch just the one show on, or that free trial that you never even used. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you, so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. Simply find the subscriptions you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as the click of a button. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. Me personally, I use Rocket Money all the time to keep tabs on the various subscriptions I have. When I'm researching stories for Disney Dish, I'll often sign up for temporary access to some newspaper or magazine's online archive, and Rocket Money helps me quickly identify the ones I'm no longer using and then shut that no longer needed subscription down. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. I feel like I'm repeating myself. rocketmoney.com/DisneyDish. We thank them for sponsoring today's show. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. T.S. Eliot, in his poem The Wasteland, once famously said that April is the cruelest month. Well, no disrespect to the 1948 winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, but February can be pretty dang cruel as well, especially right after Punxsutawney Phil declares that there's now going to be another 6 weeks of winter. Hey, seasonal depression, also known as seasonal affect disorder, is a very real thing, people. And if you find yourself feeling bogged down or overwhelmed this time of year, maybe working with a therapist will help you get back on track, feeling like your best self. I mean, there were times, especially right after my first marriage ended and I was back up here in New England while my then 2-year-old daughter was 6,000 miles away in Hawaii. Well, let's just say I was not in a happy place. But because friends and family suggested that I get some therapy, I then learned the positive coping skills that helped me get through that dark, dark time. And now I have a wonderful relationship with my soon-to-turn 29-year-old daughter. We're getting together in a few weeks while I'm out in California, and because Alice now makes her living gaming, well, current plan is we'll celebrate our combined birthdays by going over to Universal Studios, Hollywood, and checking out Super Nintendo World. But enough about me. We're here to talk about you. And if you're seriously thinking about giving therapy a try, well, BetterHelp is a great option. By that I mean, BetterHelp is convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. And to get started, all you need to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, which BetterHelp will then use to match you with a licensed therapist. And if you two don't click for any reason, well, you can switch therapists anytime at no additional charge. Look, if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy will get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/DisneyDish today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DisneyDish. We thank them for sponsoring today's show.
Jim, we mentioned in our survey talk that Disneyland used to not be open every day. And I think we all kind of knew this, but it's actually well known in the culture, right? There are famous people who have made reference to this elsewhere, right?
They have. In fact, this year we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the release of National Lampoon's Vacation. Warner Brothers released this Harold Ramis movie in 2 theaters back in July of 1983.
What's your favorite quote from the movie, Jim?
I'm a longtime John Candy fan, so sorry folks, park's closed. The moose out front should have told you. It's like
I'm going to go with, and yea, though the Hindus speak of karma, Lord, I implore you, give this woman a break. which Jim has to be part. Whichever one of us dies first, the other one has to use that line during the eulogy.
All I ask is that, on the hearse, don't put me in the roof.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway, John Hughes adapted his own short story, Vacation 58, which ran in National Lampoon's magazine less than 4 years earlier. It was in the September 1979 issue. And the key differences between Vacation 58 and National Lampoon's Vacation is the movie follows the Griswold family on their epic journey to Wally World, whereas the short story that Hughes wrote follows an unnamed family to a different theme park, the actual Disneyland in Anaheim. And to remove any doubt, I now quote the opening line from John Hughes's Vacation 58. If Dad hadn't shot Walt Disney in the leg, it would have been our best vacation ever.
Jim, that's got to rank up there with Call Me Ishmael for best opening lines. I mean, it was a dark and stormy night. If Dad hadn't shot Walt Disney in the leg, that's brilliant. All right, it's true though. The opening is the hardest part of writing anything, and if you get it right, everything flows from that.
Oh yeah, that just captured your imagination.
Yeah, I mean, you're in. You're committed at that point. You've read that one line. You're like, I got to see where this goes.
But here's the thing. As the Griswolds arrive at Wally World after that harrowing cross-country journey, they discover that America's favorite fun park is closed for 2 weeks for cleaning and to make repairs. And John Hughes, who was an advertising executive at the time, this is the first story he writes for National Lampoon. He discovered that the real Disneyland from 1958 through 1985, 27 years, Len, it would close 2 days a week during the slower times of year. And it's, to be specific, Monday and Tuesdays in the fall and early winter, as well as the late winter and early spring. But again, just want to stress here differences. Real world, 2 days a week versus 2 weeks each year. February 6, 1985, the Disneyland Park formally switches to a 7-day-a-week operating schedule. That's just 4 months after Michael Eisner becomes Disney's new CEO, and that's part of his effort to make the parks as profitable as possible, which Len is a trifle ironic because in December of 58, Disneyland deliberately switched over to an open 5 days a week during the off-season in an effort to get Anaheim's operating costs under control. But okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Everybody knows Disneyland opens in July of 1955. But what we kind of take for granted these days is that this sort of thing hadn't existed before, this sort of family fun park. And we were just talking about, on the earlier part of the show with the Disneyland series, about the ticket system. That people would have leftover tickets for Disneyland, the A, B, C, D tickets. But Len, those ticket books didn't get instituted at the park till October of 55. Prior to that, if you wanted to go on an attraction at Disneyland, I mean, first you bought your admission at the front of the park, and then when you came inside and said, okay, let's go on the Peter Pan ride, it was like, all right, go over there, stand in line at the ticket booth, wait till you get to the window, hand the person cash. They will then give you the number of tickets that you want to purchase. You then hike over to the actual physical attraction. You then hand your tickets to the ticket taker at the top of the queue, and only then could you queue up.
It sounds like trying to buy bread in Soviet Russia.
What was especially frustrating for Walt is that first 3 months of press coverage for Disneyland, this came up a lot. And the narrative that started to get out there about, boy, going to Disneyland is expensive. You're constantly reaching for your wallet. And Walt did not care for this at all. And he literally turned to the guys operating the park and figure this out. We have to fix this. I don't want this level of bad publicity. And 3 months after Disneyland gets up and running, they come up with the ticket book idea, and they not only have they come up with the idea, they've got them printed, they're selling them at the gate. So you only have to open your wallet the once, and you have, the 10 tickets to go into the park or 15 tickets, for attractions once you enter the park. And, that whole feeling of I'm constantly reaching for my wallet goes away.
Yeah.
And if you think about the difference between Walt Disney running Disneyland back in 55, and you think about what's going on at the Disney company these days with Lightning Lane, yeah, right? I mean, that came online October 21st. And you and I both know from the surveys we've read on the show how hugely unpopular that system is. And Disney knows this. But
sure, yeah.
Think about what just happened this past holiday season. Think about how in the press these days, that narrative about how expensive it's gotten to go to Disneyland these days, or for that matter, how many people in the middle class are thinking, wow, can I afford to take my family to, that resort these days?
I mean, Jim, going back to question number 4 in the survey we just read, 90% of people said they spent the same or less than they expected to spend in Disneyland in 1960. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jim, and say that if we asked people who visited a Disney theme park today whether they spent the same or less than expected, 90% of them would not say yes.
They would not.
Yeah, no.
They would not. And especially on the heels of what happened this holiday season where Disney actually jacked up the prices of Lightning Lane. It started at 15, it went to 20, and now it's at like 22, right? Anyway, back to Disneyland closing on Mondays and Tuesdays in the off-season. So when did this practice start? I actually dug down. In fact, I was back over at the wonderful Disney Doc site, and they have a copy of the 1958 edition of the Walt Disney Productions Annual Report. And the letter from Roy Disney in this publication, published on December 23rd, 1958, reads that while the gross income of Disneyland was greater this year than in any prior year, the operating expenses of this family fun park were likewise up substantially, primarily due to 2 factors. Operating a 7-day-a-week schedule through the 1957-1958 week, versus a 6-day-a-week schedule the year before. And then there was also increased costs due to rising salaries and the inauguration of a 40-hour work week. Now, reading between the line here, what this says is that Disneyland in its second year of operation, the folks down in Anaheim experimented with keeping Walt's Family Fun Park open 6 days a week during the slower time of years, which I'm told resulted in all sorts of angry people out at the entrance of the parking lot who had driven down to Anaheim for the day only to find it closed.
This is the John Hughes scenario.
There we go. All right. So
in real life again.
So for the third year, the Disneyland stays open 7 days a week all year long, which turns out to be a problem during the off season, given that there were days in the late fall, early spring, where there were actually more cast members working in the park than there were guests coming through the turnstile, which explained this line in the 58 annual report. This current year, we are operating the park during the winter months on a 5-day schedule, with resulting savings and operation costs, and the hope that a full week's worth of business can be compressed within those 5 days.
And what were the 5 days or what were the 2 days that they were closed? Was it Monday, Tuesday?
They were closed on Monday and Tuesday. And Walt learns that not only is there a cost savings, but those 2 days prove to be so valuable when it comes to doing projects of size inside the park. In fact, one of the reasons, for example, Matterhorn Mountain basically flew up out of the ground is that, for the late fall, early winter, and likewise the late winter, early spring of 58, 59, they could get in the parks on Mondays and Tuesdays and really slap up that steel, which is why, if you think about what opened the summer of 59, you had those 3 huge attractions. You had the Matterhorn, you had the subs, and you had the monorail. And all of that was largely achieved on the back that, Disneyland was closed 2 days a week for a lot of that time, and they could really do some amazing construction during that period.
Well, not only the 2 days it was closed, but from the time that the park closed Sunday night until the time the park closed Wednesday morning. It's
There
more
we
like
go.
60 hours.
There we go. I mean, you gained a lot of time.
It's 12 more hours, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
If we jump ahead to the 59 annual report, letter from Roy Disney, it says, again this year, as in every year since Disneyland first opened in 55, new records were set for total attendance and per capita spending by guests. And the change to a 5-day operating schedule during the 58-59 winter season from a 7-day schedule in effect the previous year has worked out very well. Reduced operating hours helped control operating costs in the face of increased wage rates and other rising costs. We do have to talk about the Disneyland Hotel.
Oh, Jack Wagner's place.
That's it exactly. Mr. Rather, who Walt went to in the spring of 55 because, look, I need a hotel next to my park and no one else will pay for it. And please, Jack, I'm begging you. And Rather relented and built his hotel.
And then Walt goes and closes the park 2 days a week. Yeah, I see where the problem is here. Okay.
Okay,
right.
but here's the interesting thing. Walt reaches out to Jack Rather personally and says, look, this operational change of the park is going to change your bottom line. Don't fret.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it worth your while. And Walt delivers on that promise. Think about it. June of 1961, he extends the Disneyland monorail system a full 2.5 miles. So this transportation system goes from something that just travels around the theme park to something that rolls right up to the front door of the Disneyland Hotel.
2.5 miles. Isn't that basically Magic Kingdom to Epcot?
There we go. Okay.
That's a hike.
Yeah,
okay.
no,
All right.
absolutely. But no other hotel in Orange County has this perk.
Here's the monorail at Howard Johnson's. No, that's just not going to happen. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Walt pays for this out of his own pocket. That's $1.9 million. And by the way, in 2023 money, that's $19 million. This very same year, 61, Walt has some of his staff artists design a miniature golf course that then can be built on the Disneyland Hotel grounds. Have you ever seen any images from the Magic Kingdom golf course, Len?
No, but it sounds delightful, and now I wish I'd seen it.
It's Disneyland in miniature. I mean, for example, hole number 3 is Sleeping Beauty Castle. Hole number 5 is the Matterhorn. As we walk through the rest of the course, you've got the TWA Moonlighter, the submarine voyage, the painted desert from Frontierland, what you saw when you rode Mine Train, Tom Sawyer's Island, even Skull Rock and Monstro from Fantasyland, and also set up so it could be illuminated at night. So this meant the Magic Kingdom miniature golf course at Disneyland Hotel could be played from 10 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. at night, 7 days a week. And from the moment the monorail connected to the Disneyland Hotel, that hotel achieved 100% occupancy.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised there's only 3 towers these days.
Well, no. That's also worth noting that even after they go to this 5-day-a-week schedule, Jack Rather is suddenly doing so well that in 61, he breaks ground for the next tower, the 11-story Sierra Tower.
Which one is that now?
That's the one that came online in September of 62. I want to say this is the 3rd tower. The 4th tower, the Bonita, wouldn't come online till tail end of the 60s. By the way, it's also worth noting here that the Disneyland Hotel on those Mondays and Tuesdays during the winter months, with Walt's permission, by the way, offered its guests the opportunity to go to Knott's Berry Farm or when it opened in 64, Universal Studios up in Hollywood. Literally, a Gray Line bus would pull up in front of the hotel several times a day, offering guests round-trip transportation to those Southern California attractions. Likewise, the Japanese Village and Deer Park over in Buena Park.
Wow.
Look, it was a different time. You know, back when Disney prided itself on being a good neighbor and when the mouse didn't have to have all of the money when it came to the Southern tourism market. Back then, Disney actually thought, there's plenty to go around. We don't need to be greedy. So, by the way, just to circle back to National Lampoon for a sec, the actual Wally World stuff from that movie, and just so you know, Len, Warner Brothers did in fact reach out to Disneyland, and it's like, hey.
I'm sure they did. Yeah, and Disney was like, we want no part of this.
There we go. So, The scenes with Chevy Chase and Anthony Michael Hall running through the parking lot at Disneyland, that was actually shot in the parking lot of Santa Anita Racetrack. It's a horse track in California.
But didn't they also go on they went on a roller coaster with John Candy, right? At
They
gunpoint?
did, but that is Six Flags Magic Mountain.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So there you go. That's once upon a time, that 5 days a week, and only changed February 6th, 1985.
Did you ever ask John Candy about this film?
When I was working with John on a roadshow many, many moons ago, I think, National Lampoon's Vacation was still a year or so away.
Okay. All right. So it hadn't happened at the time.
I got to interview John a couple of years later when he was working on Rescuers Down Under for Disney, and to be honest, the topic didn't come up. But I should have asked him.
Had we known it was going to be a cultural touchstone,
There we go.
would have asked. The things we wish we knew.
Yep.
Still, great story though. That's awesome, and it's a good tie into a classic movie.
I try, Len.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show and Jim Hill Media by subscribing over at disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes. On next week's show, I'm writing Tron, in fact, later today, over at the Magic Kingdom, so we'll talk all about it on next week's show. And Jim gives us the up and down history of Disney trying to build rides out of robotic arms. What could possibly go wrong with any of this? You could find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who'll be guest guitarist on the song Cleanest Hands during the release party for Sea Level's new album, Think for Yourself, on Saturday, March 4th at the Grog Shop on Euclid Heights Boulevard in beautiful downtown Cleveland Heights, Ohio. While Aaron's doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.